hi, hello, welcome, or what? Oh. I kept wondering why my camera wouldn't focus, and it's because I had my straw sitting here. I think that was throwing it off. Hey, hi, hello, welcome, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess. And I obviously am technologically limited, but we're here to talk about my June wrap up. Somehow we've made it through half the year. It's very rude. And if you hear Nigel in the background whining, it's because he attacked my package. So before we get into my wrap up, we have to thank our sponsor for this video, which is Booksu, which you can see it's kind of smushed because somebody tried to come for my snacks. I love that child, but he's rude. He's pushing it. Look, I mean, he smushed the box. I told him these were for mama, not for you, Nigel. Lord have mercy. Anyway, so I talked about Booksu before. If you didn't see that video, sad for you, but I'm gonna tell you about it again. It was a monthly snack box, but this one is for those who want to try authentic snacks from Japan. It literally ships from Japan. It comes with this nifty guide. Yours will not be all muck up like mine, because unless you have a Nigel in your life, that will tell you all the snacks, any allergens, what areas of Japan they're from, if they're sweet, if they're savory, and it has so much. This isn't even all of it because I might have tried a few before filming this video, but that just tells you how much is in here because there's still so much in the box, even though I've already tried a few of the snacks. So like I said, it's a monthly subscription. Every month has a different theme. You can pause or cancel at any time. If you watch my videos regularly, you know I'm long-winded and you usually need snacks. So this is the perfect subscription for you. You could try different snacks authentically from Japan and kind of take a culinary tour from the comfort of your own home. So you can use my code JESSO20 to get 20% off of your first box. And hush, which can save you a good chunk of change, and so I highly recommend it. Again, it's JESSO20, and of course I'll have that down in the description linked below, so you can just click your way to some snacks. Now I did say it does ship from Japan, so be patient. It might take 1 to 2 weeks for your first box to get there, but it is totally worth it. But we're gonna get into my wrap up for June, and I might just snack on some of these here while Nigel is over there. Oh wait, I just put lotion on, so I tried to open it and be cute, not. Okay. Okay. This looks like a little donut. What is this? Look at it. It's like. Oh wait. I thought it was only like half of this. It's so like. What an interesting consistency. It's so like light. It just like melts in. This goes good with my coffee. What a good parent. Oh yeah, books. I read books. Look who's here. Ragadicious himself. Are you gonna tell the people what we read in June? You're gonna tell them what we read? I read 7 books in June. One of them I can't tell you about because it's for a secret TBR vlog that I have coming up. But I started with that secret book, and then I read A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I have a separate video ranting on that for like 40 something minutes. If you want to watch that, TLDR, it was whack. It was 750 pages of wasted space, and I'm mad about it. But you can go watch that video if you'd like. I'll link it up below. I'll link it up and below. What are you doing? Why are you always messing with somebody's blanket? Then I read The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America by Richard Rothstein. I did this as a buddy read with Elle from Elliot Brooks, Jashana, and Monet. I'll have all their channels linked down below. Whoo, child. So obviously Elle and I buddy read Evicted in May, and then she was like, we should buddy read this one. And this one didn't get us as, This one wasn't as emotionally upsetting as Evicted, because this was definitely more from like a government and law standpoint. So it's talking about like how basically our government is responsible for the segregation then and now in America, and you know, especially in areas that are predominantly one group of people, especially when those groups are a group of white people in a nicer area and a group of, you know, maybe black or brown people in a less nicer area. And because a lot of people, I think the terminology was de facto is when it's done, de facto is when it's done by the people, and de jure is when it's done by law. And so some people try to say that it was more de facto, that black people wanted to segregate themselves, they wanted to live amongst themselves. And while that can be true, if they wanted to live amongst themselves, they definitely and damn sure did not want to live in some of the areas that they were forced to live in. And so he really argues the history, and even though we had certain laws passed, of how federal and local governments worked against black people being able to integrate into better areas, aka predominantly white areas. And he was speaking about, I think it was like a car factory or something in California that moved to this area. And so there were a lot of people who had already worked for this car factory and wanted to move closer to it. It moved maybe like an hour and a half south from where it was originally located, but there were predominantly white people around that area, and they weren't allowing black people to move there. So a lot of them had to commute like an hour plus each way to go to work. They also had this thing that would happen there sometimes would be either a white person would buy a home but then sell it to a black person, trying to get them to have a nicer home, or a white realtor maybe would sell to a black person. Somehow a black person would be able to acquire a home in a predominantly white or all white area. And then they did this, I can't remember what they called it, they had a phrase for it, but they would do this thing where then they started like raising this panic, like, oh my gosh, the Negroes are coming. And so they were like, you gotta get out. So all the white people would start selling their houses, and the prices would go up. And so then black people who were looking for homes would end up having to buy these homes at like accelerated prices, and then that led to a whole slew of things. But just bullshit like that, it still made us angry. It didn't have the personal side that Evicted did, because it wasn't talking to deliberate, like straight to families. It did have some examples of people in history, but it still is, I think he had a really great argument, and it just shows everything. It just gives more proof and backs up what we already know, that people love to ignore, that so much of it is systemic. And yes, it is the people, and of course I'm sure black people wanted to live with black people, because what did they experience from white people? But they also didn't want to live in areas that were like in industrial areas, or by like, you know, a garbage dump, or in areas that didn't have great schools or access to all of these things. But they ended up having to live in those areas more often than not, because of systems that kept them out of living in better areas. So I mean, I think it's worth the read. I listened to the audio, of course. I did get the physical in after I had already finished the book. I don't know if you can see it, but Nigel, if you want to come up here, you need to sit down. But it was definitely one of the better books that I read in June. This child is so ghetto. That's why you can't have none of my snacks. Look at him. Look at him looking. None for you. Then I read Make a Scene by Mimi Grace, which I think this is the same cover artist for Sweet Hand, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it's still a beautiful cover, and that's mainly the reason I read it. And because it's a bakery romance. So the heroine, Retta, is a baker, and she's opened her own bakery. And next door recently, there's been like a boxing gym opened, and the owner, his name is Duncan. So the boxing gym next door, the owner is named Duncan. And so I think it's kind of like in a strip mall kind of thing, and they have limited parking. And so between the employees, they're kind of like going back and forth with each other, trying to figure out the parking situation, leaving little passive aggressive post-it notes. And finally, she goes over there to like talk to him about the parking, and then she realizes how hot he is. And anyway, she is recently, or not recently, her ex-boyfriend is like getting married to her cousin, I think. And so she's going to the wedding and she doesn't want to go alone. So she asked Duncan to be her wedding date, and like, if he does this, like they get to know each other, be her wedding date, then she'll like give up, they can split the parking evenly or something. Basically it comes down to parking, so it's like fake dating, and of course they fall for each other. My problem is it was too short. It was like barely 200 pages and it just went like that, and I was like, oh, what? Like, we didn't really get to know them that well. Their relationship escalated too fast. It just wasn't enough of everything. Like, of course, not enough of the bakery, not enough of their initial awkwardness, banter, you know, like unsure of each other, dislike. Not everything just went too fast because it was so short. So I just never felt invested in the story, never felt invested in the characters or the relationship. Which, what I did know of them, I'm like, they're cute, they seem like they would be good, but it just like, I think there's a sweet spot for romance books. Once it's past like 350, I think it's too long, but this one was like, I think barely, and I read it on Kindle, so I'm not sure, but barely 200 pages. I mean, the book ended and I was like, but they just, so I don't have much to say about that one because there just wasn't a lot in the book. I would give the author another chance. Maybe, hopefully her other books are longer, but yeah, it just went way too quickly through all the stages of their relationship or of the entire book, and I just felt like it was a whirlwind, and I was like, I don't know what happened. So I mean, it was cute, easy read. I think I gave it 3 stars. I read The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I did this as a buddy read, and I was surprised at how great this book was. It's like 900 pages as a historical fiction, and literally the premise is that they're trying to build this huge cathedral in like the 1500s or something. So I was like, I don't know how riveting this is going to be, but it was so dramatic. Like, from chapter 1, it is full of drama, messy ass monks. You heard that correctly. Messy monks. And there's like political maneuvering and families at war, kind of like feuding. There's so much. I will say content warning, trigger warning for rape, like on page at least 3 or 4 times because one of the characters is such a piece of shit. But oh my goodness. It starts out with this one family, and the guy, his dream is to be a master builder of cathedrals, and he gets like fired from the job basically because they don't want the cathedral built anymore. And so he and his family go on the road in search of another cathedral. And on his way there, he encounters monks, and then you'll see these monks later in the story. And so it's really him and these monks, the institution of the church, the politics at the time, and different family members over a span of years on this quest to get this cathedral built. But how much nonsense and foolishness and war and dramatics, marriages and alliances. It is so, it's like a historical soap opera. Like, I was entertained. The entire time we were so surprised at how it kept our attention. I will say, it has 900 pages. So there was kind of like this cycle that I can't really explain what it was, but I feel like it can happen in books when they get too long, where it's almost like you know what's coming. So it's like, so this character is having a hard time in life. Then they finally catch a break and things are on the up and you're like, woo! But then something happens or someone comes back in to ruin stuff, and then you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And then they survive it, and then they finally are doing well, and then the person comes back. You know, like that cycle? And it kind of like was like that throughout the book with various people and interactions. Like towards like in the last like 15-20%, I was like, okay, come on. Like we could have maybe taken out 1 or 2 of these cycles and just wrapped up the book. But I still gave it 4 stars. It still was such a fun, dramatic, messy ass read. Like when we were messaging each other, we kept being like, oh my God, I can't stand him. I just want this person to be happy. Like when something finally went our way, we were like, yes, finally they get love and happiness. Like it is a roller coaster because it spans so many years, and it is very entertaining. So I definitely will read the next one eventually, not in any hurry. And hopefully someone told me it's just as messy. So I'm looking forward to that. But yes, I'm so surprised that a historical fiction about building a cathedral could be so entertaining. I loved it. Then I read Hearts on Hold by Cherish Reed. This was a romance I saw mentioned on Twitter. The heroine's name is Victoria and the hero is John. So Victoria is like a PhD. I think she's an English professor at this predominantly white institution. And the hero, John, is a children's librarian. And so her school is, I think, facing lower enrollment numbers. So they're trying to find creative but cost-effective ways to bring in more students. And so everyone's supposed to come up with like a proposal. She comes up with a proposal to have people in the English program do like an internship at the library just to learn more, because I mean it's still relevant to their degree. Maybe they would realize they would go on to do library and science. And so, like I said, predominantly white institution. Her superior is this white dude who's just like on her ass. And so for a romance novel, it tackles and talks about being a Black person, especially a Black woman in academia, like in a predominantly white space, really well. Because she feels like, you know, she really has to tread lightly because she's trying to get tenure at this place. And then, so he's, of course, the librarian who she has to work with, who she's trying to set up this program with. And oh my God, I just loved their chemistry. I loved their banter. And so essentially, they both are attracted to each other. And they admit it early on. And there's like a running joke between them because he looked her up when he got the email and she has like this super overdue book that's a historical romance. And so she's like, I do not have that book. I returned the book. And so he ends up reading the book and he like, one like quote from the book, something is about a sordid affair. So they finally like express their attractiveness to each other and he's like, what about we have a sordid affair? So he basically is like, hey, we can just have an affair. We're both attracted to each other. We're adults. We can just have sex. She is very like orderly, makes lists, plans. So she's like, okay, but we have to schedule this. And I think in the book he has ADHD, and so he is not as structured as she is. So she's like, okay, we're gonna do it on this day, and this day we have an hour. And he's like, but he goes along with it for like a week, and then he's like, we're gonna do it my way. But he also has a niece that he is taking care of while his sister is abroad, like for work. And so I have realized that in a romance, when there is a man who steps up for somebody else's kids, I love it. He was so great for her. It was so sweet. And so I loved that element of it. His dad, I think, has passed away, but his dad divorced his mom and then got remarried. But his two moms, his mom and his stepmom, are like besties, and they're amazing in this story. I just loved his family. I loved the relationship and the role he was playing for his niece. Loved his relationship with, what's her name? With Victoria. And I loved her because I could really relate to her and trying to have structure and also trying to operate in a predominantly white institution. I mean, I've never been a professor, but still could relate to a lot of the things she was going through and letting her walls down and letting go of her rules and her control. And she also has like these really strict parents. Like her dad was in the Navy or the Marines, and her mom is just very much about throwing the balls and all these things. Not like that's my parents, but she just was like, her mom's calling and she's like, oh, and just, you know, trying to live your own life and also trying to please your parents, but like, I don't know, trying to keep them at a safe distance so you can live your own life. I just related a lot to her, and I love the romance, and it just made me really happy. And lastly, I read Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. So I probably will talk about this more in my next nonfiction wrap-up video, but it's really short and I think a recommended read. Everyone should read it because she talks about the global interconnectedness of struggles, because it says freedom is a constant struggle, Ferguson, Palestine, and the foundations of the movement. So she talks about different things that have happened in America, but then also can connect that to why. So if we care about these things that happened in Ferguson, what happened to Michael Brown, what happened to Trayvon Martin, what happened to Philando Castile, we should care about the things that are happening in Palestine. Like she relates so much of that, and also talks about when there was apartheid in South Africa, and how much of our struggles are connected, not even just, I guess, theoretically or I don't know the word for it, but also by corporations, and talking about the prison industrial system. I listened to the audiobook, but I also had an ebook copy, but you know I need a physical copy. And I just found myself highlighting entire pages and I was like, well, this isn't useful. I'm just wanting to highlight everything. It is basically like a collection of various speeches or that she's given, and she does narrate the audiobook. So it's a very interesting because it's not written just like as a book. It's more like speeches she's given at places on these topics, but they all work together really well. And so obviously I'm gonna get a physical copy of that, but I think everyone should read it because she was just taking me to church. And I think at first maybe you don't think about that, but it makes sense the way she explains it. Like if we're caring about these issues, if you're caring about Black lives and marginalized lives in America, then you should be caring also about indigenous struggles, and then the struggles that people are having in Palestine, and the struggles basically worldwide. We have a common struggle and we have a common enemy. So that I feel like was really rushed, but my camera is also about to die and run out of memory storage. So that was my wrap up. It wasn't the best reading month. It was decent. My reading is slowing down a little bit just because I've got a lot of stuff going on. I'm trying to study for an exam, trying to do different things, but it's fine. I just would rather slow down and have higher quality than read a bunch and have medium quality. You know what I'm saying? So that's it for me today. Please tell me how your reading went in June if you've read any of these, and always thank you to BookSoup for sponsoring this video. You can use my code JESSO20 to get 20% off. Link will be down in the description, as well as a lot of other information. I will link all of these books, and obviously link to my Patreon if you would like to join us over there. It is chaos per usual. So that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay blessed, hydrated, sunscreen, and moisturize. And I will see you in my next one. Bye. Tell them bye. Say bye-bye. Say leave me alone. Nigel, please, I don't want to hear it. You did this to yourself. I read books. I cannot stand Face ID on Apple because half the time it's telling me I'm ugly. Nigel. You just sit over there and think about what you did. No. These are like savory, but then sweet.